So, J. Rude, what book are we going to talk about loving today?
I will give you a hint.
Okay.
Orgy Porgy.
Oh, I should probably know this. Before you give me the other hints, and I hope I don't embarrass myself by not being able to guess the very famous lovable book, let's introduce ourselves. I am here today with my husband, J. Rude, author of the Robin Hood Mystery Series, the new book, Treasure of Sherwood. It's just come out. This is Ghoul of Sherwood, which is the second in the series. And you also have a series of Merlin mysteries that you have completed. You are retired English professor of medieval literature and a voracious reader.
Yes, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Stacey Margaret Jones, author of the novel Mr. Catherine, set in Little Rock, Arkansas. Stacey Margaret Jones is an instructor of English and creative writing. And she is a voracious reader herself.
Okay, give me another hint, because I don't know.
Okay, here's hint number 2.
Okay.
Impudent strumpet!
No. I wish I knew. This sounds great. Okay, I'm okay, give me another hint.
Last hint.
I hope I haven't read this book.
Alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons.
Okay, I'm going to guess, and I'll probably embarrass myself because I don't know when we come into these what book you're going to talk to me about. Is it 1984?
Ooh, so close.
Oh, no.
It is Brave New World.
We just read that book aloud.
Well, I am not responsible for your not knowing the hints, even though you just read it aloud.
Guess I was
19
paying close attention.
1932, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
All right. Why don't you give us a down and dirty summary, since I obviously need to revisit it.
Well, Brave New World is a dystopian novel about a future which is intended to be a utopia, one in which everybody is happy. But it turns out that the reason they're happy is that they've taken away everything that they can actually feel strongly about. Mm-hmm. So they're not happy either. They're just not real unhappy.
So utopia is not activated.
No.
Not really.
But it was a very influential novel, and in fact is kind of the blueprint for later dystopian novels, mm-hmm. like 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
And even The Hunger Games, of those kind of things.
Before we talk more about why you put it on your most lovable books list, you've read a lot of books from a lot of lists, best books in the English language, right? And your list is most lovable books in English. Who else loves Brave New World? Like, what lists is it on?
Oh, it's on plenty of lists. Let me tell you a few. In 1998, Modern Library came out with its famous list of the 100 best books of the century mm-hmm. in English. Which famously Ulysses came in as number 1. Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
Brave New World. Now I got Hunger Games in my head. Brave New World came in as number 5 on that list. Okay. So it was pretty highly ranked. It was number 7 on the Penguin Classics list of the 100 best books as voted on by their readers.
Okay. So it's not just the ivory tower, but the readers of the books have picked it as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was on the Guardian's list of the greatest English language novels, and the Observer's list of the 100 greatest novels of world literature. And the BBC did a list of the 100 top British novels, and it was on that list. So lots of people love this book. So did I.
All right. Well, why don't you walk us through a little bit and discuss why you think it should be on your list of most lovable books?
Well, it's a reaction in a lot of ways to certain optimistic ideas that were around prior to World War I. People like H.G. Wells and Bernard Shaw talked about how science and technology were going to create a utopia for the people of the future. And they had this great faith that was going to happen. And then World War I happened, which sent that idea straight to the trash bin. Because what happens in World War I is that people realize technology is not necessarily all good. It could create a kind of technologically enhanced barbarism, which is what happened in World War I.
Well, and the peace to end all peace.
Yes.
That came from World War I.
There was a lot of optimism then in the 1920s, though, a different kind of optimism, mainly about capitalism and that sort of thing. And then came the crash of 1929. So Huxley, in the worst part of the Depression, writes Brave New World, basically pillaring those earlier ideas, those early optimistic ideas.
Did you say when this came out? I'm sorry.
1932.
1932. Yeah. Okay.
It was Huxley's fifth novel. He had written 4 novels before. He's already a well-known novelist. In fact, Huxley came from this background that's almost incredible to think about. His grandfather on his father's side was Thomas Huxley, who was the most famous science writer in the Victorian period. He was called Darwin's bulldog. He was a big proponent of Darwinian science. That was his grandfather. On his mother's side, he's the great nephew of Matthew Arnold. So
one of my favorite poets.
Yeah.
Well, he's written one of my favorite poems. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
one of the best poems ever written. Dover Beach.
Dover Beach.
In case you want to read it.
I know it. But I won't recite
talking
it.
to the listener.
I won't recite it now. Okay. So from that kind of blue blood background, he graduated from Balliol College at Oxford, I believe it was. Yeah. And then he had written 4 books, and I was already a famous novelist. But he was writing about sort of high society people and kind of satirizing them. And then suddenly here comes Brave New World, which is a totally different kind of a thing.
Yeah, because it's the idea of it is that there are hierarchies of people, but there's no high society in that way. But it is hierarchical still.
Very hierarchical. This is a society that where they've done away with families.
Right.
You have no father or mother.
Right.
Everybody is created essentially in a test tube.
Right, which they mix to get the kind of outcome they want, right?
Yeah. So
it's so creepy.
There are alphas, there are betas, deltas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. And the deltas and epsilons are manufactured to be kind of stupid, not very bright. They're the people that are created to do all the menial jobs. And they won't be unhappy doing the menial jobs because they know they can't do anything better.
They were made to do them.
They were made to do those. And so they're not discontented with their lot. The alphas and the betas are manufactured to be smarter and they get the top jobs. Since you don't have a family, you have little groups that you meet with regularly, which usually ends up having an orgy because, sex is fun.
Right.
But nobody has any children.
Right.
It's just, have fun. And if things don't work out somehow that you're not completely happy, there's a drug called Soma.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the drug, and they're all just completely blitzed on Soma almost all the time.
Yeah,
because everybody's unhappy.
A gram is better than a dam.
Yeah.
That's a gram of Soma, and you'll just be happy. And so you'll just float through life that way.
Yeah.
So
and they're all just on Soma, like
whenever they feel like they want to be.
Well, and it's interesting because I think that's something we still haven't learned how to deal with that as a society, because to me that was also a commentary on addiction, and people don't know how to experience bad feelings, right? If you could just live with your bad feelings for a little bit and learn how to get through them, but instead in this society they're like, don't have a bad feeling, do drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And and Huxley is aware of that, and he's thinking, I think, partly of Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard's Concluding Unscientific Postscript, I think it's called. He says that in order to be happy, you have to create difficulties everywhere, and then you will become happy. You will make yourself happier by overcoming the difficulties. And that's exactly what this society tries to eliminate.
Right. Because
there are no difficulties to overcome.
Right. Because they're going to engineer, everything's pre-engineered so that you don't have any problems. But it's actually doing hard things that makes us happy, right? Or meeting challenges, or having that experience where you accomplish something you didn't think you could do, and how it changes you. But they don't ever get to do anything like that.
No, I mean, they do sports, apparently.
Sports ball.
But the whole society is based on manufacturing. Even the people are manufactured. And so they date the beginning of their civilization from Henry Ford. And
that's right. I forgot that whole Ford religion.
Our Ford.
Yeah.
Ford's in his flivver, all's well with the world. So it's the assembly line that becomes the beginning of this technological paradise. So the story of Brave New World takes place in the year of our Ford 632.
But it has, I forgot that whole theme of it, which is consumerism.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you are here to produce and consume. And I just heard this the other day. I'd never heard this term before. Shopfluencers. People that just go shopping, and then people watch their TikToks and they get paid to go shopping. And then they go, because TikTok pays them, and then they go shopping more. It's just consuming.
Yeah.
And it's basically...
That's a big part of the society.
It's Brave New World.
The director of the hatchery. The hatchery is this big factory where all these beings are created. The director of the hatchery spends the first couple of chapters in the book explaining to newcomers who've just been employed what they do.
Yeah.
Which is a kind of Huxley's trick to giving you the backstory.
Exposition dump.
Yeah, exactly. The director of the hatchery says at one point, we condition the masses to hate the country because living in the country, they're not going to make any money. But simultaneously, we condition them to love all country sports. At the same time, we see to it that all country sports shall entail the use of elaborate apparatus so that they consume manufactured articles as well as transport. So they have to pay to get to the country, and then they buy the skis or whatever. So it's a consumer-rich society.
Consumer, and just like those shopfluencers, like, you don't need one kind of Go cup for your water. You need one to match every outfit. And I mean, it's 90 years ago, and we're still in the same spot.
Pretty much. Now, there is a plot to this, to all of this.
Yeah.
There are a couple of characters who are sort of discontent.
Right. You have to have those.
There's a Bernard Marx who's an alpha, but he's a little bit, people think somebody got something into his test tube.
Yeah.
When he was being born. And then there's a Helmholtz Watson, who's a friend of his, who's an artist, and they get together sometimes and talk about the things that they're not real crazy about. Bernard has this new girlfriend that he's seeing once in a while, whose name is Lenina Crown.
And she loves the soma.
She loves the soma, and she loves the sex. And he takes her to an Indian reservation.
Yeah.
And the Indian reservation is the only place in the world that's not dominated by this utopian society. Because they're so backward, they do things like have babies. And they meet this fellow named John, who turns out to be somebody who actually came from their society, or his parents came from their society, and apparently screwed up on their birth control. And so the woman was left there pregnant, and when the guy came back. John decides he would like to come back and see what things were like for his parents. And his mother comes too. His mother is, kind of a large woman. Everybody in the Brave New World is slim and looks perfect. Svelte. And she's
not. Because
she looks like she's been let herself go for the last 20 years while John was growing up. And the reason the book is called Brave New World is because John loves Shakespeare. And he has a copy of Shakespeare that he's been reading on the reservation. Nobody reads Shakespeare in the Brave New World. Nobody reads anything.
I was going to say, I don't think they read.
No, books are destroyed.
Yeah.
And The Tempest is one of his favorite plays. And in The Tempest, you might remember Miranda when she's grown up away from the rest of the world with her father, who's been marooned on this island, and this ship comes and it's carrying her father's brother and some other people, and it's shipwrecked, and she meets the people from this new world, and she says, "Oh, brave new world that hath such people in it." And this is sort of John's reaction to at the beginning of when he gets there, and then he starts seeing all these things that are just crazy to him.
Yeah.
His mother's dying, and they bring a bunch of school kids in to watch her die because they don't want the kids to be afraid of dying, and they don't want her to be afraid of dying.
But she's like a zoo animal.
Yeah,
like
on display.
I also found that whole theme of the book really interesting because I hadn't read it before. And so when we were reading it recently, which I forgot about, obviously, I was really surprised. I thought that he was going to kind of hold up the indigenous people and their traditional way of life as like optimal. And he doesn't. Like he kind of, everybody's shredded.
Well,
although I will say I would prefer them to other, but
it is a better place. It's not perfect, but
it's hard though.
It's hard.
It's hard.
But that's what makes
that's true
for happiness.
Yeah, I guess what he didn't do, because he wrote a masterpiece, was that he didn't go for the easy, like, look, they have this paradise world here, everybody is going to want to live here because it's their paradise is the better paradise. No, he didn't, right? He has them in contradiction to each other.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that John goes between worlds.
The savage. That's what he's called in the book.
Jeez. Yeah, I forgot that.
That which is what the people in the Brave New World think of him.
Right.
There is an interesting conversation toward the end of the book that the savage has with this guy named Mustafa Mond, who's the...
he's like an uber-alles, right?
Yeah, he's the world controller.
Yeah.
And Mustafa Mond, it actually, I'm just trying to figure out what the name meant. Mustafa is an Arabic term for someone who's chosen. Like
and Mond is world.
And Mond means world, so he's like the chosen one to lead the world.
They're talking about Shakespeare. Is that the conversation you're thinking of?
Yeah, because Mond actually has read Shakespeare.
Right.
He just doesn't want anybody else to. And the Savage says that, he quotes Hamlet. And he quotes Hamlet as saying, exposing what is mortal and ensure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare, even for an eggshell. Isn't there something in that? And Mustafa's response is, the right to grow old and ugly and impotent, the right to have syphilis and cancer, the right to have too little to eat, the right to be lousy, the right to live in constant apprehension of what may happen tomorrow, the right to catch typhoid, the right to be tortured by unspeakable pain of every kind. That's your option.
Right.
You can have what you want, and then you also have to have all these things that we've eliminated. And it's Huxley's kind of putting it to you as he's playing devil's advocate. And John says, I claim them all.
Yeah, because it's that dangerous kind of, in here, it's in the book, it's not a thought experiment anymore. It's a live experiment, but it's freedom from, right? And that's what I think a lot of authoritarian and power-hungry, structures do is we're going to make sure that you are free from these things. But that isn't free. That ends up being nothing like liberty, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have choices.
Nope.
And in these case, they're, almost automatons.
Yeah. They're conditioned to be that way, too.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention that while they're in the nursery, there are these recorded messages over and over again
while
for
they're
hours
sleeping.
and hours and hours while they're sleeping.
Yeah.
Telling them,
Yeah.
everyone belongs to everyone else.
Yeah. It's, oh,
things
my God.
like that.
Just gave me the high anxiety. Before we move on to ranking, why don't you talk a little bit about why people might not love Brave New World?
Well, there are a lot of people who do not love Brave New World. Like anything else that has something important to say, Brave New World's been the target of crusaders wanting to ban or challenge the classroom use of this book, and it's very often has very often been used in schools, in high schools, and the reason that the book's been challenged or attempted to be banned are on the basis of offensive language, unchristian worldview, explicit sexuality, racism, presuming that the savages' origins are kind of presented in a racist way.
Just that word, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's and it is kind of anti-capitalist, so that is
because
another thing that people have not liked about it. It's been in the top 100 most challenged books of the decade. In 1990 to 99, it was number 54. 2000 to 2009, it was number 36. 2010 to 2019, it was number 26. It was the third most challenged book in 2010 and the seventh most challenged book in 2011. So that's a kind of a badge of honor, I suppose. But it's also ironic because in Brave New World, this society bans books. And
oh, sure. I mean,
Brave
not
New
just
World
select
itself,
titles, all
of them.
books.
But Brave New World becomes the banned book
Yeah, that
for
is
our
ironic.
time.
That is interesting. Well, and I will say when we started this book, because this, as I said, we read this aloud recently. When you were reading, I think you were reading that exposition dump, as I called it at the beginning, where he talks about how the babies are made.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this book? Like, that goes on a long time. And I'll tell you, if I'd picked that book up on my own, I might not have gone much farther than the first few pages. So I think it is something to, if people haven't read this and want to, the whole book is not like that. That's the way he sets the stage for the world in which the reader finds him or herself. So, yeah. And
it does have a kind of shocking ending that
no spoilers.
No spoilers. Can't get into here.
We shall not. So, in our previous episodes, we discussed Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, which you ranked number 1. And poor Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice, her Pride and Prejudice is now ranked number 2 on our master list that we're building episode to episode. So when we're finished, we'll have 100 books in the order that you think they are lovable. Mm-hmm. Where does Brave New World go on that list?
I'm putting it at number 3.
Okay.
Stacey Margaret Jones.
I thought that you better do that or we were going to have a fight. It is a masterwork, and there is a lot to think about in that book. So, all right.
So there is. So is it time now for Chaos Reader?
It is time for Chaos Reader. So I'm still working my way through Lyndon Johnson biography. I'm scaring the hell out of finishing it.
Ooh,
but so I'm in the 700s. And it's 884 pages of text. Then there's like hundreds of pages of notes after
I'm guessing
that.
You won't read the notes.
I'm not going to read the notes. But I thought I'd share another book that I'm slowly working my way through, which is The Letters of Sylvia Plath, Volume 1. So this is a rather thick book.
She wrote a lot of letters.
She really, well, she's a great example in that a writer writes. And it was before email. And she typed, and she would just type. She typed lots and lots of letters. And so what I've been trying to do is read 20, 25 pages in this book between other books. So I have gotten to page 751. She has had her big suicidal incident while at Smith, the one that the bell jar is based on. And she doesn't have any letters about that. She kind of glosses over it because she didn't write a lot of letters while she was getting treated for it. When she's back at Smith, she kind of picks up and goes on. So, as she says in the bell jar, she's patched, retreaded, and ready for the road. But I love the letters. She has so much verve and life and just a huge vocabulary that she's very, adept with describing things. And what I love is when you read the complete letters, she'll tell the same incident to different people. So she highlights different things based on who she's talking to, her mother, her brother, a guy she's dating, a friend. And it's really interesting. And there's tons of notes in here. Like if she mentions a person, there's a note on who that person was. Like if they taught at Smith, how long they taught there. It's wildly comprehensive, as you can tell. Anyway, this is the first volume. And then I have another one. So there's only 2 volumes. So it's about 3,000 or 4,000 pages.
Just think if she'd lived past 30.
Yeah.
There'd be...
bless her heart. Anyway, that's what I'm working on for Chaos Reader. So.
All right, then.
All right. So where can they find your books, J. Rude?
You can find them on Amazon, or you can go to the publishers page and circle publishers. And where can they find yours?
Amazon or at Creators Publishing. And we'd also love it if you'd like and subscribe to our podcast and follow us and tune in for the next episode when we get our 4th lovable book.
All right. And we'll do that between the covers.
That's right.